Okay, so I keep waiting for the moment when I'm actually going to put makeup on and do a video for you guys kind of about the UN and that whole experience, and it's not happening. It's not happening. And then I'm actually traveling tomorrow and Tuesday with my pro-choice friend Robin Marty. We're hitting up Texas State University and then Texas A&M to do kind of a panel on dialogue and showing people how you can be friends even though you have different ideas, and you can challenge one another but do it civilly. So it's going to be good. I hope it's going to be good, because then we're road tripping to the second one and we decided to share a hotel room. So if it's bad and then we have to do it the next day, it's going to be awkward AF. Okay, back to the UN. So it was an amazing experience. My first video, a lot of you guys watched, where I'm like, oh, this is some one world order shit. Like, it's scary, scary. There's definitely a little bit of that for sure, but it's just like anything where you have a group of people that are all coming together, and a lot of people who are the, diplomats and heads of these countries, and they just like with our country, like our leaders don't necessarily represent everybody, right? And so it's that same type of thing where like you have these people coming out and speaking in behalf of these nations or these villages, like these tribes, like whatever it is, and like you kind of assume like, oh, okay, this is how everyone feels, and it's just not. And so I think the one thing I became very leery of is we have to be very careful with our Western ways and our kind of white saviorism that we try to push globally, right? Like that was the fear of what I was seeing, because Carolina with Big Ocean Women did this amazing presentation, which I linked to on our New Wave Feminist page, 30 minutes, definitely watch it, about artificial systems versus organic systems and creating a maternal economy. And because women's work is unpaid, like a lot of times when you're just looking at the spreadsheet of this is where the money should go and this is what should be done, we oftentimes undervalue women's work. She spoke with a woman from Sweden who was talking about unpaid work in Sweden. And Sweden, obviously on New Wave Feminist, is something that is always brought up. Like, look at Sweden, they have these great, parental leave type of laws there. You could stay home with your child for 18 months. That's amazing. It is amazing. We should definitely do it. But what we also have to understand about Sweden is basically you get help with childcare. So it's subsidized, right? So if the woman down the street is watching your child, then you get money to go towards her watching your child because the taxes are so high and people have to work. But if you decide to stay home and raise your own child, like you don't get that same break. And so a lot of times what we see is basically people who can pay someone else's work, because then it goes on the spreadsheet, then it's considered valuable. But when it's done by the mother or father themselves, it's not seen as valuable, and actually their family budget takes a hit for this, okay? And so when you see these systems in place that overlook the maternal economy, as Carolina calls it, like these are the roots of the tree. So they're just looking at the tree from the ground up. They're not looking at the roots underneath that are women. Like it is our life-giving power. It is our ability to ovulate, gestate, lactate, menstruate, which that's a less fun one. But it's completely ignoring all of these amazing attributes we have and just saying like, pen to paper, like what is it that societies value? And so when you look at things that way with a more, either capitalistic or communistic or socialistic like view, and you don't look at the maternal economy, then you're missing a lot. And so it's very easy then to go out to the UN and globally say like, here's what we have found. Here are the artificial systems we've found to replace the organic systems. The problem is so many other economies don't have the same ability that we have here in the US. So in the US, we have the ability to suppress fertility, to choose not to have children, which like we here on New Wave Feminists, we are all for that. If you do not want to be a mother, don't be a mother, man. Like do not have children. Like that is completely fine. That is absolutely a valid option. Our issue is more once a life has been created, it needs to be protected. But we are all for people saying like, we don't need that system. And so the solution is you find the system in community, right? Because when you don't have an organic system, you don't have these like organic connections with other people, with family in some form or facet, you end up having that government dependency, and that gives too much control to the government. So if we can create these organic systems within our community through, creating our own families or leaning into, the community around us, like that is where our power lies. And women are just inherently good at that. Like we make those connections all the time. And so after a couple days at the UN and kind of seeing some of the crazier stuff go down, and then seeing Carolina's speech, and it was so phenomenal, because it was like all of these women in the room suddenly felt seen. It's like, okay, we've all been here at the UN and nobody is talking about the power of women, really, even though this is the Council for the Status on Women, which is the number one thing we should be addressing. Like, it's more about suppressing it. Even the I mentioned this on, I think, our Instagram. I went to a panel on menstruation and helping women globally who don't have access to pads or tampons, you know, these things that literally when they start menstruating they're having to drop out of school, and all these other issues that they're having, and how do we culturally go in and help women and empower them. And a question was thrown up at the end during Q&A about, well, what about long-acting birth control? Can't we just suppress their natural organic systems and, you know, basically fit them into this male normative world? And the fact that that question wasn't immediately shot down blew my mind. And it was like, yeah, you know, there's definitely a way to delay these things, and maybe that's part of it. And like, fuck that. No, that's not part of it. Like, accommodate our bodies. Are we here to smash the fucking patriarchy or not? You know, it was very frustrating. I like how my voice went so high on that. Anyway, so having like conversations like that, like, we need to be accommodating women. We need to be celebrating women. So the fact that was kind of my earlier in the week experience. Then hearing Carolina with Big Ocean Women speak, definitely, like I said, I'm really encouraging you guys, watch her presentation. It's so good. You end up understanding so much about the maternal economy. And then on the last day, I went to a session that was sponsored by Canada, Sweden, and Samoa, and it was phenomenal. And it was basically all about abortion trauma and the fact that, again, we push these Western solutions globally, and it's really culturally insensitive. Like, and there is a level of colonization that's coming with it, where we're saying, oh, this is what's worked because we have an economy and a healthcare system, honestly, that, you know, if you're taking these hormones or whatever it is that you're doing, like, and you get a blood clot or any of these other, you know, pull out your birth control and read all of the different symptoms that can happen, you can go to the hospital here in America. You can get checked out. You can find out what's going wrong. Same with abortion. If you have a perforated uterus, or, you know, any tissue is still left inside from your fetus, like, and it results in an infection here in America, for the most part, you can go and have that taken care of. Although the two women who did speak, one of them ended up having to have a hysterectomy from her abortion trauma. And so even here, it's not a surefire, you know, safe procedure all the time. And yet we're pushing it globally in places where they don't even have access to that basic health care. And I think it's incredibly dangerous. And the women of the world need to understand that this is not, you know, free from consequences. Like, there are symptoms that are going to arise, whether they are physical, you know, or even emotional. Like, there is emotional abortion trauma, and that's the one thing I did a podcast with. It was called Improper Etiquette with these two pro-choice feminists, and it was so good because, like, basically the conclusion we all came to at the end is you have to let women feel what they feel and experience their experiences. And this idea of shout your abortion campaign and everything's so great over here, like, it's a marketing campaign, and it's just not authentic. And there's a lot of women who don't fit in to that narrative, and by silencing their voices, it's really dangerous. So that's why I love that the last session I went to at the UN was all about that. It was women telling their stories. There were these two powerhouses who spoke, and I got video of it that I'll be posting in the next few days. And I think that for me is when I realized, like, okay, it's not a lost cause. Like, there are people here who are rational, and they're thinking long game, and they're understanding that building this community and having this network is vitally important. And when we start erasing that and saying the government can do it for us, you know, whether it's because we're thinking population control or eliminating poverty or whatever it is, we're saying, oh, you know, remove the family, you don't need that anymore. Like, it's incredibly dangerous in so many ways because it removes that support system that so many of us have. And so, all in all, it was an amazing experience. I learned so much. I cannot wait to go back next year. Like, it's something that I got so filled up just from being with the group of Big Ocean Women and realizing how we're going to be able to work together in some huge ways. Like, we have the people, they have the model, they have the system. And one other quick thing, because this video is getting way too long. I was talking to a friend recently down in Austin who wanted to do an abortion aftercare type group, completely secular, right? Because we don't see that. We see a lot of religious people doing it, which, like, great, thanks, but what about for secular women like us that don't necessarily, you know, have this belief outside of maybe just a higher power? And as we were talking and I started talking about, you know, being in recovery, and I came into recovery as an agnostic, and I had just kind of made this transition a month prior to getting into the thing that's supposed to be anonymous that I'm not supposed to talk about, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And so I remember walking in and they were like, you have to have a higher power. You have to have some sort of spiritual belief. It can be the doorknob, it can be the light bulb, it can be your neighbor's higher power, but you have to believe in something outside of yourself. And when they said that, I'm like, freaking seriously, I just gave this up like a month ago. But I understand the idea behind it now, that you believe in something bigger than yourself, and something that wants the best for you, and something that wants you to serve and connect to others. And so going this week with Big Ocean Women, like, I'll be honest, I was a little concerned about my sobriety. Like, 9 days away from my family, I've never been gone that long, and completely on my own. And, you know, what if there's going to be temptation to drink and everything else? And then I end up with this group of women that I think one had a beer one night. Like, that was it. Like, they were so effing high on life and just helping other people. Like, they weren't going to let that shit slow them down. And I completely stumbled ass backwards into this group and was like, oh, this is exactly where I needed to be. Like, there was some higher power out there watching out for me that's like, these are the women that you have to be with. And so talking to this friend in Austin, she was saying that creating an abortion recovery group that's like similar to AA would be really great. Like, having a place where it's not religious, you know, maybe you have a belief in a higher power, but that's it. And then you know, she was like, we've got to come up with like our 12 steps. What are our 12 steps? And I get to the UN and I meet with Carolina and I'm hearing and learning more about Big Ocean Women, and she's like, oh, we've got these 12 tenets, and they are so spot on. And I was just like, this is it. This is what we're creating. Like, whether it's at the cottage level, which is what Big Ocean Women does right now, where they create these support systems within communities for women so they can reach out to each other rather than, you know, necessarily going to like a higher government level for support and for help. Like, they can just call each other, which is super powerful. Or it is the idea of just, you know, creating this AA style abortion recovery group. Like, all I know is that some shit got birthed out of this experience for sure, that New Wave Feminist is going to be a part of. Because like I said, they've got the structure, we've got the people. Like, how we start making this happen on a global level, I don't know. And randomly, a couple months ago, I got linked up with this woman named Maddie Cheers, who is phenomenal, pro-choice feminist. She had me on her podcast. We found more common ground than we found stuff we disagreed on. Like, it was super, super helpful. And she runs a thing called the Women's Oneness Project. And it's that same type of idea. It's just a women's circle, women getting together, sharing their experience, strength, and hope, right? Sharing their wisdom. Like, I just feel like it's so funny because I have called my higher power Mr. Miyagi for the last few years, which, sorry if that's blasphemous to some of y'all, but that's the way that my higher power works. That's the way the universe works for me. It weaves together all of these different things that I don't even know why they're being weaved together, and then all of a sudden I see this final result that took every single one of those elements. And so the fact that my recovery and my trip to the UN and Big Ocean Women and New Wave Feminists, like, are all coming together to create this beautiful, like, tapestry that hopefully is going to help so many women is just, it's so cool. It's so cool. And any burnout I had is completely gone, because it's like I've just been completely refilled through this experience and given a whole new vision for what New Wave Feminist is supposed to be. So hopefully you'll all be encouraged by that. I'm very encouraged by that. This video is super long, sorry about that. But that is my UN rundown that I will share with y'all now, and then I've still got links and information and all types of stuff that I'll be, you know, kind of breaking up over the next month to share with you guys so that y'all can be just as informed and empowered as I got to be this week. All right, have a great day.